The most invisible superpower is invisibility, but the second most invisible superpower is consistency. Like, you don't know somebody's consistent when you meet them. They're on time for your first, oh, we're going to grab coffee. They're on time. Okay, cool. Are they an on-time person, or were they on time today? Maybe they're late. Are they a late person, or were they just late today? You know, you don't find that out. You don't know in one meeting. You know, talent flashes. Consistency doesn't flash.
Welcome back, or welcome to Why Option. I'm your host, Yogi Roth, and hard to believe, we are in November. Hope you had a marvelous Halloween. Mine was incredible. I wasn't with my kids, so it wasn't as good as it could have been, but I was with some people that I just adore in a campus that always delivers. We were at Minnesota. They had a game against Michigan State. I was with Rhett Lewis, Guy Haberman, our entire TV crew. We had a truck there. It was all time, which leads us to today's big interview. Every one of our conversations are brought to you by our founding sponsor, 76, keeping you on the go so you never miss a beat. Man, it's been fun for 2 years having this guy, Guy Haberman. Welcome back to the show. You never miss a beat, man. We didn't have many beats to miss over the weekend. We had a banger. It was all-time, overtime win from PJ Fleck in Minnesota, man. Your final game of this college football season. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm great. I do love Minnesota. It's been one of the I don't even want to say pleasant surprises. I hadn't, when we got work in the Big Ten, I hadn't really thought about, like, oh, where do you want to go? You just think of like state, like, oh, Nebraska, that'd be sweet. And it is. But going to Minneapolis, as many times as we've gone to Minneapolis the last 2 years, and always doing it, I don't think we've been in September. We've been in like October and November. It's just an amazing place. Amazing place.
I think that's one of my biggest takeaways. People always ask me, like, what's it like being in the Big Ten? And I'm curious if you would agree, if you have something to add or disagree with it. Part of me is like, it's the crowds. Like you go and you call a game. We had a game 2 weeks ago, Purdue and Rutgers, winless in the Big Ten, 90% capacity, rocking on a homecoming weekend in West Lafayette. And then this past weekend in Minneapolis, it wasn't, game day wasn't there, but it could have felt like it. I mean, it was awesome. And I think that is like one of the coolest parts about being around this conference. The
schools are so big too that, like, I know this was something I learned in basketball, especially doing games like in LA, but also Oregon and Washington, is that their fan bases are everywhere. So Purdue's got fans, it's an engineering school. They got engineers up and down the West Coast. Michigan State's got like 30,000 alums in Southern California. And it's true. Like, I live in the Bay Area. I haven't tried, but I'm pretty sure you could find a bar that represents almost every Big Ten team in San Francisco somewhere. So it's awesome. It's big.
I love it. So as I referenced, you and your incredible wife, Alyssa, are expecting your firstborn here in a matter of weeks. So we're just going to claim this as Guy Haberman's final exclusive one-on-one. Prior to adding to the family. I want to start with that before we get into Big Ten. Like, what have you noticed? Because our job is to notice things, right? We observe, we analyze, we dictate what our eyes tell us. What have you noticed about your wife over the course of the last year?
What are we doing here? You told me we were talking football today.
We will.
Not feelings. What have I noticed? I don't know. I mean, I think like we've known each other a long time. Her and I, not you and I too. But I think a lot of the stuff that you say, like, you hope in times of crisis, like what are your traits that show, and the ones that are her best traits, are the ones I've seen. So I would say that, and that everyone's like, oh, get your sleep before the baby comes. Like, but we're not sleeping now. Like, she's not sleeping now. She hasn't been comfortable sleeping in 7 months. So I would say she's already operating pretty good with no sleep. So I'm confident she'll be a good teammate on Team No Sleep even after the baby comes.
I love that. I just wanted to ask you that because I do think that, like, we're always amazed by the people we're closest to when they continue to just showcase tremendous consistency, right? To your point of, like, you met her in a history class a while ago, Fresno State, and now here we are, and here grows your family, and it's been amazing to watch you guys navigate this whole thing too. And we'll get to football now. I think it's really important to
Ambush.
try to read between the lines, read between the lines with coaches, and what are they saying? What are they not saying? So I want to have this type of conversation with you because the season is not over, but it kind of is for you, obviously, as we referenced. What are things, or how do you notice, like when you're observing a coach, when you're watching a game, when you're observing a practice, when you're in a meeting, are there lessons learned that you've had in your 2 years in the Big Ten, and now Guy is one of the voices for the San Francisco 49ers, that makes your ears perk up a little bit? You're like, they're on it right now. Or, man, like, let's see, I got a question.
It's so good. Like I one of the best parts of the job of calling games, right, is we do coaches meetings on Wednesdays on Zoom and on Fridays in person, and sometimes on Fridays with the visiting team in person too. But it's one of my favorite parts of the job. It's you can't pay for, these are people who dedicate their lives, not just to football, but to leadership, right? And if you're dedicated to leadership, you're dedicated to maximizing potential. Like that to me is what everybody's chasing. And like as the years have gone on, well, especially like going back to last year, I used to ask however many questions. I ask fewer and fewer questions because you get so much out of these guys, because what gets them to open up first is football. And you study the game so much, you study their tape so much, like, there's a twinkle in their eye when they realize somebody noticed something that like they probably want to keep a secret, but okay, since you brought it up and since you noticed it, I can trust you with that information. So we get so much of that stuff. I remember one thing you told me years ago was talk to coaches, talk to players, ask them the same questions and see if the players repeat what the coach says. If they do, that means that the coach's message is getting through. So we get to do that because we get to talk to players, and we kind of get to do that test. I think, I was thinking about it today because I knew I knew was going to be your topic. Because one of our favorite things, and I was just, I'm scrolling back through my notes because I'll take notes in bold, like the stuff that I want to remember. And this was not a bolded thing. I was just thinking about like what theme constantly comes through. And it's not just on teams that are 5-0. It can be on a team that's lost 6 straight, which Michigan State now has. And even thinking back to their meetings last week, I think the teams that have a chance to play the right way, somebody's going to lose, somebody's going to win. Like Purdue, they're looking for a win, but like they play the right way. I think Michigan State looking for a win, they play the right way. Do you have a reason that you're here? And we've heard a lot of coaches say that this year, like, oh, he's got a how. That's something I don't remember hearing as much last year, but I've heard that from multiple coaches this year. Oh, he's got a how. What's his, or I guess a why, not a how. What's his why? You hear that a lot from coaches this year. Oh, he's got a why. He's got a why. And everyone's why is kind of different. We talked to a player last week who had a clear why. Like, it's not going so great. He's like, no, this is the path. This is the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be hard. And I think that is the thing that like that really stands out with the people that are able to stay consistent through adversity. I think it's probably a lot easier to stay consistent through success. But the guys that can stay consistent through adversity, there's a larger, they're playing a bigger game than the game this week.
Go here, go there, go anywhere with 76.
Okay, so hold that thought, because I think it's a cool comp with where you sit on Sundays as well. College players, you're right. Like, they have to answer that question. And there's a lot of locker rooms that you have a picture of somebody who is your why in your locker. It could be your mom, your sister, your son, a coach, whomever it is. So you're constantly just being reminded, like, hey, you're doing this for something even bigger than you. It's hard to do. It's hard to maximize potential. Certain programs can do it. I think we both agree Minnesota is one of those. You're getting every drop out of every player, at least as we would presume, to a high percentage. Mm-hmm. Well, that percentage still doesn't make it to the National Football League. So what do you see in the NFL? Like, is it more cutthroat around like, hey, your why better be so tight, you can't miss a moment on it? Do you see talent elevating? Where do you navigate that? Because you watch Brock Purdy every weekend, who clearly wasn't a first-round pick, when he was healthy. And away he goes. Mac Jones, who now you see, he was going to Kentucky when he came to the Elite 11, which a mid-tier Power 4 school, and then goes to Alabama to basically be like another arm because they have Tua and Jalen. Next thing you know, he's finalist for the Heisman Trophy, top draft pick, and now he's on his second team having success in San Francisco.
Those guys are both great examples. I think Brock, one thing I thought about him early on was, his consistency is the thing that stands out. So, you're the greatest. I came up with a saying for him. The most invisible superpower is invisibility, but the second most invisible superpower is consistency. Like, you don't know somebody's consistent when you meet them. They're on time for your first. Oh, we're going to grab coffee. They're on time. Okay, cool. Are they an on-time person or were they on time today? Maybe they're late. Are they a late person or were they just late today? You don't find that out. You don't know in one meeting. Talent flashes. Consistency doesn't flash. Mm-hmm. So, I think the consistency is probably the number one, because the talent floor is so much higher. So you just can't get away. Like I would look at some of these bios of guys. You'll sign a player, or they'll sign a player. They'll be like, look at this guy. On paper, everything, got it all. But the margins are just so thin. So I think, rosters are so small. You don't get to hang out on a roster all year like you do. And I'm making college. College is not easy, but the rosters are bigger. You're not getting cut and replaced week to week to week. So I just think the why is the why is just survive. Like, how do I get to next week for a lot of guys? How do I put a career together? I'm here. Getting in the door is the easy part compared to staying, right? The list of guys, because you get a little more expensive after your third year. Can you justify? It's easy to justify. It's not easy. It's easier to justify them keeping you on a roster on a practice squad when you're young and cheap. What about when you get a little bit older? So that's where I think it's just so hard because everyone loves, but I know you do love Mick Cronin press conferences, the UCLA basketball coach, and he was talking about a player, and he said, this guy was like, he's on his team now, Xavier Booker, long, just got him from Michigan State. He was 200 pounds and a 3-point shooter in high school. He's like, just because you were that in high, you don't get to just keep being that. Now you're in college. You want to be in college, you got to get a little bit bigger. You want to be in the NBA? It doesn't matter what you were in high school or what you were in college. You got to change again. You're going to be 6'11", like you got to rim, run, and rebound. So it doesn't matter what you were before. You just are going to have to find a way to be something better. And that's, I just think it's another jump at the pro level. We're like, you can kind of get away with some stuff. Your talent, your numbers over the course of a season against maybe 7 teams are inferior to you. You can stack up numbers.
What do you notice about college NFL coaching? Is something glaring jump out to you? Not like Excel, but just like the vibe overall.
Well, a lot of college guys wouldn't mind being in the NFL.
No doubt.
Because it's just football, right? So there's that. I think there's a ton of crossover, like in terms of football guys love tape and they don't, this better than me, but they don't, there's no prejudice. Oh, you found a cool play from a JV team? Like, cool. We'll run that play or we'll bring that in or we'll wrinkle it. It's hard to know who's really invented anything because which that part's cool. Guys love taking other people's stuff. And so I think they're probably more similar than they are different. You hear some of the same stuff. Like one thing I'll just say this real quick, Yogi, is one thing I didn't quite understand years ago was you don't really get to the type of coaching you do is to win a game. It's not, you don't really get to do player development during the season, especially in the NFL. Like there's no time. I don't know how they get ready for games, dude. There's like 3 practices.
Totally. Yeah. And
I don't understand. How do they get anything done? It's crazy.
So here's the last one in the NFL, because I do want to circle back to college football. One of our favorite podcast series was titled Play Callers. And it was kind of like the Shanahan tree and LaFleur and McVay. It was really cool to hear guys talk about it being head coaches and play callers. In college, it's almost like looked down upon at times. Like it's criticized. How do you do it all? Lincoln Riley, play caller. Jed Fish, play caller. Like, do you make anything about that? Because again, we're coming off of Minnesota, Michigan State, where Jonathan Smith was an elite play caller, now CEO. PJ Fleck wasn't a play caller, but loves being the CEO, the head coach of the whole thing, that whole operation. Whereas in the NFL, like when I watch these guys on Sundays, I'm thinking like, I don't think of them like that. Like I do Pete Carroll, right? Of course, because I'm super biased and I've known him forever, but I've been around him to know like he is like a leader in that regard. Killed it in college when he had his opportunity at SC. When I think of like the 49ers, I'm not necessarily thinking like leadership first. I'm thinking like play caller. I'm not thinking like CEO, head coach first. I'm thinking play caller, offensive mind, head coach. Have you noticed anything in that regard? Because in college, it seems like it's not really, it's relatively foreign to be a head coach and a play caller.
Yeah. It just seems like there's so much more work for a head coach to do in college.
Sure.
That's not football responsibility. I think Kyle's a really interesting one because I think he does probably have that rep of like a play caller, but he's pretty, I think his leadership, his players really, really, really respect the way he leads. But I think it starts with his knowledge of football. It starts because he can tell any position, hey, this is the way for you to get better, which is always the way for coaches.
Amen.
And I think, I do wonder, I might fire off like a half-baked theory, but, the leadership of the guys in college do talk about, I'm helping young men become men. That's less of the job in the NFL, although they're still young guys and, when they first get to the NFL. But now you're a professional. There's certain expectations. If you're not going to live up to them, that's your problem. Like, I'm going to replace you. So it becomes more of a scheme thing maybe. But at every level, coaches all saying the same stuff. Like, I got to get my best player the ball.
Yeah, I believe in that. I think that's like, I think it's fair on like CEO in college because you have more to do. But I think that's becoming less and less with the advent of the front office. We've seen it all across the Big Ten and really across the country. Like I think in 3 years, it's going to look more like the NFL than it will look like college 5 years ago or 8 years ago, because 5 years ago we know what 2020 was. So I'd be curious to see how that thing shakes out. I've made a list together of the coaches that we've been around, and been able to hear their approaches to their team, to leading, to guiding, to calling plays. Matt Rule, Lincoln Riley, Kurt Signetti, Kirk Ferentz, Mike Loxley, Jonathan Smith, PJ Fleck, Ryan Day, Barry Odom, Dan Lanning, Jed Fish, Greg Schiano, Tim Skipper, James Franklin. The list goes on, right? There's 18 coaches in the Big Ten, and there's been really fun crossover we've had even in the non-conference of like, you could tell stars are shining, and guys are going to be tracking in their career. I just kind of ripped off, 10, 12 names for you. Like, do you think totally different than one another? Do you find similarities? Like, what stands out to you when you think of the holistic approach of a head coach?
I mean, there's definitely different ways to do it. That's a great question.
Like, I'll let you think on it. Like a couple things. Like,
tell me what you got. Yeah.
Well, Kirk Ferentz is like an all-timer, right? Like most wins in the history of the Big Ten, and they've done it his way, right? Coming out of Pittsburgh, PA, like they're going to run the football. They're going to be tough, defensive-minded, and that's going to be the identity. Kind of been the identity, right? And I go back to 20 years ago. I wrote my master's thesis. I don't know if you know this, at SC. And it was about, the question was, what makes a great coach great? So I studied Coach Carroll, John Wooden, Phil Jackson, Coach K, and like a handful of other Anson Dorrance, like just highly successful coaches. And two commonalities showed up. And now, today's era, I think 3 are necessary. 1, independent in thought. Like, can you have an independent thought, or are you just always trying to steal, right? Which speaks to identity. 2, are you uncommonly consistent? I mean, uncommonly consistent, to your point. Like, showing up for a cup of coffee with Guy Haberman, showing up late. Is that who you are? Or are you just late that day because you had to drop your kids off at school? Like, whatever it might be. And then the third one, today, I think you have to be an elite communicator. Like, have true emotional intelligence, capacity for your thoughts and the thoughts of others, and do it with empathy. So I look at those 3 things, and I think of all those names, and I'm like, check, 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 check. But they all are so different in how they navigate those 3 pillars, which is just kind of how I see the profession. But I'm curious, because play-by-play, you do see the game differently. Like, we study, we talk all the time, but we don't see it exactly the same.
Well, I think I'm just listening to you talk about those guys. Like, they're not all, I think you have to check, like, to your point on listening, like, I think they've all evolved. Like, I think about what the perception of Iowa offense is and what it actually is now with Tim Lister as the offensive coordinator, who's actually like a Shanahan LaFleur tree guy, or Mike Loxley, who, and I know, last year he said this year in the preseason, I lost the locker room last year. NIL, I had young guys coming in. They were making more money than the old guys. That was a problem. So, we had to address that in a different way. And I guess it goes back to the thing I was saying about Mick is like the tactic that worked as a coach 10 years ago doesn't necessarily work today. You don't get to just run back your old leadership drills and have it work with, the players change, especially in college so quickly because you don't get to have a guy on your team for 9 years to show everybody else the way. So I would say that that's probably the thing is you have to be willing. You have to find a way within whatever your philosophy is to also evolve it.
Guy, I'm curious for you in your career. Like you've had moments where like there's been bridges in the road, whether shows get canceled, you get offered certain jobs, but it seems like you've had this vision for what you want to do. In the last 2 years, one of the coolest parts of being your partner, was watching you ascend. I know that might make you a little uncomfortable. You went from, we were going to do our thing with the Big Ten football season. Before you know it, you're calling Big Ten basketball championship tournament in March. You're doing national games in the National Football League. We had a couple games on Fox together. You work for NBC as well. Like, what has it been like to be you over the course of the last couple seasons? Because I know you had a vision for your career 10, 15, 20 years ago, and now seeing it somewhat come to life in a way maybe you expected, maybe you didn't, but you're clearly tracking right now.
It's been awesome. I mean, it's been great. I think that I don't know, I'm sure there's coaches. I know you get a ton of coaches that listen to this. I think it's probably a player's thing too, or anybody that does any other type of job. In the last 2 years, I've developed, as Yogi knows, I have a lot of theories. I developed a theory that like we'd all be so lucky to be what is a dirty word in football, which is a system quarterback. In football, it means like, oh, you can't really work in any environment. You're not that talented. You're a product of your environment. And what I've come to learn the last 2 years doing games with you on like really good crews in the Big Ten Network and being around really talented people, you need, over the course of any career, you need a handful of people who really believe in you and advocate for you. And then you pray in the end you get to be a system quarterback where you can focus on your best skills and have other people around you who elevate you both with your strengths and in the areas where you're not as strong. Or maybe they do their job so well that, you can just focus on your job. That's how I feel. Like you do, and Rhett Lewis, our sideline reporter, and the crew, like everyone does their job so well that all I have to do is my job, which is not most job. Like anybody doing any job, listening to this, either now or at some point in their life has done a job where they had to pick up the slack for somebody else. And then they get to just focus on their thing. So, you ever watch Shark Tank and I know you watch Shark Tank. And it's like somebody's doing it and they'll be like, and have you quit your other job? And it's like, no, I still got to make money. I still got to do my other job. And that always scares them off. Like, well, I want somebody who's all in. But that's most situations. It's like, you get to just focus on the one thing and get better at it every day. And so I don't know if that's an exact answer to your question, but I think in everybody's own way, you're the quarterback of something. And you hope that we should all be so lucky to be system quarterbacks. That's the point.
Yeah, I love that. I love. There's more on that for another show. We'll get you out of here on this because I do want to ask you. You've just had another season in major college football. You've been around college football for a long time. I know you're a lover. You're tracking it every day. You're reading the articles, seeing what's going on in the sport. When you look back on this season, it's not over yet for all of us, but it is for you. What comes to the surface? Because I think. It's easy to say, like, we remember games, but like, I don't remember a lot of games, over the course of 18 seasons doing now. I remember other things. I'm curious for you in this season, as you've had 48 hours to kind of reflect upon your 2025 college football year. What does come to the surface for you as your life is about to dramatically change?
I think I think probably knowing that my season was going to be shorter than normal, that I wasn't going to work a college football game after November 1st, I was hyper focused on like getting better every week. And that was a great lesson. Like if you really pick, to me, it's easy to say like, I want to get better. It's like, but at what? And at what this week? And then you pick one thing. And then at the end of 2 months, you got better every week at something. I think that was a great lesson. Who did I hear say this somewhat recently? Like, basically, I don't remember the point was like, if you're gonna try and do something, you have to know how much time you have to do it. Like it makes it, and that's probably the perspective on all of us, right? It goes back to be where your feet are. It's like there is an end line. And in life, like you're not quite running to that final finish line. You're trying to get stuff done before you get to that finish line. And so this year, knowing a specific, here's the finish line, and it's not a full season, because I think sometimes September 1, like, oh, November 28th is so far away. But of course, it's not. But knowing it was shorter this year, like that was a great lesson, and we spent a lot of time on it. Like, how are we going to get better this week? And then you focus on it, and you do it. So that's what I'll take for this year.
That's cool, man. I'd echo that. I think majority of broadcasters and the young ones listening, because I know a lot are, like my intern Andrew, who's calling games for USC. He's a rock star. And I think all of us, me included, and I imagine you too, we have this place where we want to land. I want to call the biggest games in the world. I want to call a college football playoff game. I've always dreamt, call the Rose Bowl. Like that has been career goal for almost 20 years now. But you have no influence over that. All you have influence on is like, how do you get better today? And that's where I think, like when I listed all those coaches off, there is something around the cliche of like controlling the controllables. Like I've always said, like there's so many parts that we get every week. We go get this leadership seminar and then we talk about it and we illuminate on it and we celebrate these individuals, but then we get to bring it back home. Like, you and PJ Fleck, no BCD. That's going to be rule number 1 for a little Haberman.
Complain, defect.
That's right. Like same thing in our home. And I think
I like how your son says it.
Yeah. Can't necessarily say
blame, complain, deflect. I barely get it out, but
yeah. I think that's a cool part that's underappreciated probably and undervalued of what you get to do every week. And then to your point, the discipline and the focus. Yeah. And I've noticed that from you in a really bespoke way, because I know you love that word.
Such a dumb word.
I think that has been the best part of this season. I've watched us pour into this thing, man, and it's amazing because that trait is convertible. Because now you're going to go pour into the next thing, whether it's basketball, 49ers, obviously Alyssa and your future child, like those. That's I think the fun part when we look back on all of this. Like, I think you and I will have more conversations around PJ Fleck's philosophy and Ryan Day's philosophy and what happened at Penn State versus, do you remember the game in the third quarter when we nailed that, even though we love that in the moment so much?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, we also talk about that other stuff because no one else will talk about it with us, certainly not our wives. Like, oh, did you see that layout in the third? You look at the way, then the camera, you see that, and then you could have said, but yeah, I mean, we do love us some PJ Fleck. There's no doubt about that. There's no, to get specific. I know you wrote about him in the newsletter this weekend, which was fun to read because it's the results are hard to argue with. But the results don't always come. Like I think you and I are believers in Barry Odom. They're not winning right now, but I bet they will. You talk to him, you go, this is really impressive. It's all stuff for life. It's all stuff for life. And the football makes it fun.
All right. Well, life is coming at you fast. Anything you want to say prior to you departing here, entering a new world? And you need to get off your chest, guys.
You know the answer to that.
Floor, the open floor. Okay. All right.
Have a great year. I'll be watching you and Rhett. Yeah. You're two of the most talented people on television. No, you're two of the best people on television. A lot of, you can have talent, but people get tricked by just talent. Just got to put it all together.
Pull it all together, baby.
I'm excited to watch you guys. Yeah, we'll see if everything goes on schedule, but I think you guys are going to have a pretty big game the day I'm coming home from the hospital with a baby. So it could be that the first thing that child ever watches. I know we're not supposed to do screens right away, but
exceptions to certain rules.
Exceptions to certain rules.
First time he opens his eyes at home, like there's Rhett and I. Hey,
yeah.
Hey, Dad. Hey, who are these guys, Dad? I love that. Well, it's been a blast, man. It really has. Part of me doesn't want the podcast to end because that means I know we're closing the loop, but that is life. It has been a beautiful opportunity to work beside you. I'll leave you with one thought. And this was taught to me by my partner prior to you, which is Ted Robinson. I'm going to share it with you, and hopefully one day you share it with somebody as well, is that when you think you need to go watch one more reel, one more clip, one more, because guy's obsessed with opens from like the 1970s. And that little man is awake. It's never worth it. Pour into the things that matter most, which is your lovely wife, Alyssa, and your soon-to-be newborn son. I didn't agree with Ted when he said it to me. I said, I could do both, Ted. And after 2 weeks and pure exhaustion, I rolled up to him and I said, you were right. And he just laughed. So I will laugh if you tell me I'm right, but I don't think you need any of that sage wisdom because you're already living it, man. Thank you, Ted, for that story as well, my brother.
Ted's
but
great.
For you, Guy, yeah, best of luck, man. I will call you maybe 3 times a day instead of 30 times a day. We'll slow down the cadence slowly as the season goes on. Okay.
We'll see about that.
I love it. There it is. Guy Haberman, as always, presented by our founding sponsor, 76, keeping you on the go so you never miss a beat. Make sure you don't miss a beat with Guy Haberman. Check him out. He is rolling after this break. And we see what the Niners can do in the postseason. And make sure you do not skip out at yoption.com in our newsletter. And where you're watching this on YouTube, hit that button, hit that subscribe button. And we will have more content for you as the season progresses here in November. And then wait till we get to playoff time. Whoa. Look out, folks. It's going to be an absolute blast, and it's right around the corner. As always, much love. Stay steady. Peace.